Welcome back, everyone, to 2026, to the SAICE CEO Podcast. At SAICE, we exist to advance the professionalism, credibility, and societal impact of our engineers in society, and to also shape thought leadership issues around the built environment in our profession. Today, in this episode, I'm joined by Ms. Thamini Nyide, the CEO of the Joint Building Contracts Committee, also known as the JBCC. And the JBCC standard contracts have a significant influence on our built environment and our professional roles in terms of risk allocation and project governance across the construction industry. So today we're going to be talking around leadership aspects, around sustainability of the industry, and to ensure that we can support each other towards better outcomes within our industry. So Tammy, welcome. And can you please just introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you for having me. So I'm Thamini Nyide. I am the CEO of the JBCC currently, also a quantity surveyor by profession, and very dedicated to changing the way our industry behaves as well as operates.
Tell me, how long have you been CEO of JBCC and in this role?
It's almost 3 years now.
Oh, like me?
Yeah.
Oh, that is
I think we joined exactly at the same time.
Oh, is it July 2023?
July 2023.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. So you obviously stepped into this role in a very challenging and very male-dominated space, and it's traditionally a very tough sector. How was the transition like for you personally? And did you find that you got support or not within this role? And how are you navigating that currently?
Like I said before this, there's the right answer and there's the honest answer. I'll give you the honest one. It was extremely challenging. It's funny you say historically male-dominated. I was actually the first female CEO of the JBCC, also the youngest. So that in itself presented a very different landscape to what the company and organization was used to, even the board. I think the support that I received from stakeholders was amazing. There's one person in particular, Ausnomvula Rakolote. She's the CEO of ACPM. She reached out to me the very first time she met me, which was 2 weeks into my position. And she said, listen, we must have coffee. And that coffee, I think, changed the way that I approached this role, because she said to me, don't forget you're a woman. It's not your weakness, it's your strength. So make sure that you create an environment that is conducive to that. You create it, it's not going to be there for you. So don't expect people to understand. Tell them what you need. And it was so important because I think so often we're so afraid to embrace that side of us. It's something that's hidden away. We want to suffer in silence and not voice our challenges. And they're there, they exist, they still exist. So I think that kind of support. There were also key male figures that I must emphasize, because we often think it's only the females that are going to support us. We have a new chairman of the board, Mr. Roy Misi, Master Builders South Africa CEO, and he's been one of the biggest advocates for me. I think that he's so cognizant of, who's managing stuff at home when you're here. And that's so important, because the assumption is that someone's going to manage it at home, because the guys' wives are doing it at home. But I'm a wife and I'm a mother. So I think having people like that advocating for me is really, really important. And that assisted me. And the other challenges with being as young as I am, I'm sure you've had similar challenges. We won't go into the details, but I think that's what leadership is, though. It's challenging the way we typically do things and looking at ways to improve. And I think once everyone recognizes that we're all working towards a common goal, those challenges fall away. So it does take time. You have to earn the trust of especially the board and your colleagues. And then once we're all working towards the same goal and they realize that, then the transition becomes much easier.
I love that. It does take time, and it is also built on trust. And I loved what you said about us giving us permission to actually say what we need. and not feeling guilty about it, because I think as women sometimes we want to please everyone and overexhaust ourselves, and then the people who suffer are the ones back at home. Did you ever find those kind of instances where your children felt neglected like mine did, and they want to disown me when they haven't seen me in a while?
I missed the first picture day because I was at a congress. So picture day for a little girl, a toddler girl, is one of the most important things. And yeah, she felt it because she says, Mom, Dad doesn't know how to do my hair right. Fortunately, my husband is the biggest supporter.
I understand, because I also have a very
that's my village.
Exactly.
People say it takes a village. I don't have. He's my village.
I know.
It's tag teaming. It's we are alone in Johannesburg, so we just tag team it. We have seasons, so it's my season now, we believe. So he's taking all the hits. But yeah, the kids, the child does feel neglected sometimes, and the mom guilt is real. It's so real, and I think that definitely affects the way we lead. Because if one aspect is suffering, remember we spoke about that balance, and how do you balance it? I think if we focus on the long-term, arc instead of the moment, that helps. It helps alleviate some of that guilt.
It does. Wow, that was profound. Thank you very much for that. I also have a very supportive husband. He's also taken a lot of the hits in the last year. This year I'm aiming more towards balance, or so I think. And my balance might be maybe getting them ready for the school run and then disappearing for a week in Cape Town.
Whatever works for you.
Exactly, we always have to stay cognizant of that.
I think balance is not a static state. So it looks different for everyone, and it changes as the demand changes. So the more we realize that, I think the more forgiving we are of ourselves.
That is beautiful. And I think somebody once also said that it's lovely for our children to also see moms who make decisions and who take charge and who are in control. And we might not see it now because they're still very young, but I think the future impact, we must always remember that.
I'll share something on that with you. It was last year, I think November, we were having dinner, and my daughter says, so Dad, do you own your own company? Or and he says, no, I don't, I work. Oh, so you also have a boss lady like Mom. She assumed that that he reports to a woman. It was like, what a proud moment. She recognizes that women are leaders naturally.
Exactly.
So I think true to what you're saying.
That is beautiful. So how was the transition like from you KZN to Gauteng? You mentioned that you don't really have much support here. So have you created other support in terms of your family unit, balancing work?
I think prioritizing and drawing some clear boundaries. I remember my first couple of weeks here, we had a technical meeting with one of our committees, which consists of only men, and they decided to have it at 7 a.m. My husband was not here at the time. He was still commuting from KZN, and I was doing the school run, and I was not available. And I was stuck between a place of, do I now express that I'm not available and get someone to stand in for me, or do I change the meeting? But everyone had availed themselves, and I did what I could. I said, I'll log in through Teams. My participation will be limited. I will record it and listen to the recording afterwards. But I do believe that it created a certain impression, of course, with the technical team. But I had to draw that boundary because I don't have the support. I didn't have someone who would do that school run for me. And like I said, while they're in that meeting, there's someone taking care of things at home. So prioritizing, being very, very, I'm not going to say strict, but strict with my time. There's a certain time that I will set aside just for the family. We have dinner together almost every single night. I do the morning routine, he does the evening routine. So we only open our laptops once she's gone to bed. So there's certain priorities and boundaries that I've had to draw. But in terms of more support, doesn't exist yet. I need to.
But I think you've created the support, I love what you're saying in the sense that there is a set time for family and there's also a set time for work. And even if it creates an impression that, you know, we need this time for ourselves, we need this time for our children, so be it. Men do it without shame. I know a few engineers who leave at 3 o'clock because they have to go pick up kids, you know, and it's seen, you know, they're celebrated. Oh, fathers taking their part.
Present dads.
So we should be celebrated as well for wanting to be present mothers and the time that allows us to be present mothers. So well done for that. I think I also struggled with that for a long time. But we are now starting to get into that flow and ensuring that those boundaries.
You almost want to do it in secret. You don't want to tell let anyone know that you're human, but we are.
Yeah.
And I think the more we make caregiving just the norm, then it stops being celebrated, and it's just the norm. It's what we're meant to do. Absolutely.
And maybe this might be quite controversial because the two CEOs before me made a statement that women are not necessarily natural civil engineers. I'm paraphrasing, but what he was basically trying to say is that women are more geared towards caregiving, and then how do you then bring that into an engineering context? And I think back then we were not allowed. Like, we just put it away. We had to function like men. We had to get the project done. You worked until late at night, and a lot of us, it actually even affected when we started a family. I mean, I started a family quite late. So it is beautiful to see this change of mindset that it is part of who we are.
Yes.
We are going to bring it into our context. We're going to bring it into our environment, and no one is going to look down on us for doing so. I mean, one of the things that makes it a bit harder, because I assume that JBCC also functions with volunteers. Am I correct?
No. Oh, with
volunteer staff, yeah. We have about 15,000 of those. So a lot of them are only available in the afternoons or in the evenings. So there's a lot of requests for evening meetings. And currently, I don't have a nanny. I can't, So it is part of the boundaries that we set as female leaders within the industry, and also changing the perception as well, don't you think?
I agree wholeheartedly. Back to what you were saying, I think I did a panel, it was probably 2023, November, for the SACP, very similar issue of discussion, and someone was saying, oh, it's a male-dominated industry. I want to also support that with saying it was designed for men, by men, at a time when we couldn't be a part of it.
Yes.
So it's our job now as designers, engineers, people who think up solutions, to find a new solution. Because we're here now. We're not going anywhere.
I love that, Thamini.
We're not going. We're here. I always say, if you want to remove me from here, I'm not going down without a fight. I mean, and it speaks to just leadership in general and me being part of the built environment. But you're not going to get rid of us. We're here. So we must make a place. We're not going to get a place. We make a place. Let's change the way we think. Let's change the way we do things. Let's make these things normal and acceptable. I always say we have toilets, right? Why don't we have nursing rooms everywhere? It's what we do biologically. It's what our bodies were meant to do, right? I worked from home for the longest time because I was nursing my daughter. She was almost 3 years. That's another conversation. But I did what was best for her at the time and best for me. But I was allowed to do that. I was given the space and made comfortable and not made to feel as though your participation would be limited. It was, you need to do this to perform your best. You need to be happy and take care of your child, because that's what you're meant to do in order for you to do this job. And something which is also a bit controversial, I say to my staff, I'm a woman, I'm a wife, I'm a mother. CEO is not in any of those three things. So those are my priorities, and that should be their priorities, their families first.
I love that, because I was going to ask then, how do you then ensure that your staff and the environment in which you work also aligns to that mission?
Oh no, they know that their families and themselves must also come first, their health, and definitely their families, because we know how kids always want their moms as well. That's something that I can't even explain. As wonderful as our husbands are, it's sometimes I just want my mom. And we have to understand that.
Always.
I'm saying it just to create some space, but yeah, they want mom, because when they're sick they want you, and when they had a bad day they want you, and whatever it is. So I'm very, very aware of that. And I don't know if men are as aware. And maybe that's what makes us a little bit different. But I think our empathy is definitely our strength.
So how do you bring that element of empathy just in leading? I'm just thinking now of the greater construction and built environment sector, and which has not necessarily been geared towards emotion, it's been geared towards project delivery, timelines, cost, budget, risk. And how do you bring that element of empathy in leading and within the environment, especially with our male counterparts?
It's not easy. It's not easy, and I think you'll understand where I'm coming from. If you're too empathetic, you're seen as soft. If you don't have empathy, you're trying to be a man.
Exactly.
If you are confident, you're seen as egotistical. There's a fine line that you have to sometimes wear different hats. So even though I'm extremely empathetic, I think they also know that I can be quite a hard ass sometimes. Comes with the territory. You don't want to be taken advantage of. In terms of the built environment, so I worked as a consultant, and then a contractor, and then a subcontractor, and then I worked for a manufacturer.
Okay, so you've done the entire life cycle of
the whole ecosystem.
That is beautiful.
I've also had interactions with the developer just before I joined here. So I think that's where I can pull the empathy from, because I know what it's like to be on site, where the professional team is breathing down your neck and there's expectations that are unrealistic. There's a contract that doesn't seem to work for you because there's been clauses removed or clauses amended that now have allocated all the risk to you as a contractor or a subcontractor, where you're working and you're not even sure where the next paycheck is coming from because your contract is not really working for you. And I think that's where the empathy comes from, because I'm always seeing things from the different points of views, and how can we make it better so that everyone feels confident in what they're doing. Because the confidence will then help the project delivery. But confidence is a feeling.
I love the fact that we're going there now, because I want to get a sense of how you feel about the construction industry as a whole in terms of our sustainability, the things that are concerning. You mentioned some of them, like contractual payments and risk allocation. What concerns you the most that you've seen within the built environment, especially the construction sector?
Definitely, I think the confidence in the ecosystem. So it does speak a lot to contracts, but also if you as a contractor are confident in that you're going to do something that's realistic, there's not going to be scope creep, you're going to be paid for what you do, then project delivery is going to be that much better. But at the moment, I feel like we just came out of our conference in November. And some of the discussions, or most of the discussions, were around non-payment and risk allocation. So I think that my biggest concern is confidence in what they're doing, and not just that the contractor can perform, but in that the client is going to set a goal that's realistic, and you're going to get paid for that because you're delivering a service. If we don't get that right, especially coming from government projects, if we don't get this right, I don't see how we're going to reach a stage where we're confidently and successfully having project delivery. So that's where my concern is.
Yeah, I do agree. I know there's some civil society organizations which have tried to put some clauses in our contract, for instance, to guarantee payment, etc. But I also think it's a culture. It's almost like part of the cancer that we've allowed within the industry to go unchecked, where there's no accountability.
Yep.
And clients don't want to get involved, And if it's between a contractor and subcontractor, but they also still don't want to get involved in and not acknowledge the fact that they've not paid you. And then there's also having now been exposed to certain industries, other issues like treasury not sending money to client departments, and the people who are suffering are the ones on the ground. And I often wonder, what impact is this having on our ability to create skills in the future for construction?
I think it's a direct impact. it's a direct impact, because like I'm saying, I worked for a contractor, and I was one of those people where we were like, well, we've invoiced, but the client's not paying because the client hasn't received the funding. The funding hasn't been released, for lack of that's my diplomatic way of saying it. I've worked as the subcontractor where you're getting bullied. It's the only way I can describe it, by the main contractor. If you speak up and use the clauses effectively and say, this is your obligation as a contractor, irrespective of whether you've been paid or not, for example, this is what we've agreed on. You're afraid to say that because you won't get the next couple of jobs. It affects your livelihood directly. And then you don't want to remain in those positions anymore. You want to get out of this industry that's so full of behavioral issues.
And lack of accountability.
You'd rather just go somewhere where you have a corporate job and be safe. I think it directly affects retention of the industry.
Well, I'm hoping, and besides retention of the industry, even jobs for graduates coming out of university. I mean, we're seeing so many people who have graduated being unemployed. We are not creating the jobs downstream. I'm hoping 2026 will be better. And after that construction summit that was held last year by the Minister of DPWI, that we'll start seeing a turnaround in some of these reforms that we require. I feel like we have to have that hope, right?
We have to have the hope, but also we must act. So for me, having mentorship is important. But then what happens post that mentorship period? It mustn't just be a tick box exercise. I think that graduates are not adequately prepared for the working world. And that's just been from my experience. I've had a lot of interaction with some of the tertiary institutions, and there is, we just spoke about it, an advantage that certain graduates will have just because of what they've been exposed to. Now we need to look at someone, an individual who hasn't been exposed to corporate life, to professionalism, to ethics in professionalism. How do you conduct yourself in an office? Overcoming language barriers, something that's so simple. I come from KZN, and I remember sitting in a session where students were being called out as such by a prospective mentor, saying, you can't just go to the office and then sit there and not ask questions. You need to ask questions, you need to be proactive, but that takes a certain kind of personality and a certain level of soft skills and emotional intelligence, which they don't have yet.
And exposure,
right?
Because also I feel like the family background plays a role. Like children, we were told when we were young, children are there to be seen and not heard.
Oh, 100%.
Like
that was
I'm
my
adult,
grandmother. She ran a boot camp. Yeah.
And it almost affects you. And for me, I mean, I struggled with it myself, for a very long time until I had to do like coaching. So you can imagine where people do not have access to those kind of, as you said, soft skills and being pushed to actually enter the corporate world, because there is such a thing as corporate behavior.
There is, but also the confidence that you need to speak up. I think first it's up to us as leadership to create an environment where they can speak up. The response from that student though was, I'm afraid because my English is not as good. That one, it really touched me, because I thought, well then how will he communicate effectively? But we need to create that environment where diversity is appreciated and welcomed, and say, if that's the way you speak, that's okay. You don't have to feel less than. I went to a public school, we just discussed this. I didn't go to private schools. My exposure was minimal. And as a young graduate, I also was very uncertain of myself. But fortunately for me, when it comes to fight or flight, I fight every time. Every single time, there's no other option for me. So I just had, I think, a little bit more vuma in me to ask the questions, to stand up for myself. And you can't assume everyone has that. So I think the mentorship, if we want to retain graduates, we want to entice them to join what's interesting about being in the built environment, if all we're going to do is complain, let's show them the exciting things. Let's show them, I remember doing NMR, there was a Standard Bank there in KZN, and I was part of the build. I did drafting there, and then I went to contracting, and I was part of the build. And it's so exciting. Every time I go past, I show my daughter, Mommy was a part of that. And there's a road in Belito that my husband did. And we always show her. And I want to show young people that this is the sense of accomplishment, that this building will be there for the longest time. It's something tangible.
Exactly.
You see it, you feel
like a
it.
Monument.
You walk in it and you remember when you're doing site clearance. It's that kind of thing. That feeling, we need to instill them and entice them. So it's not just about showing them what it's about and equipping them, but also telling them these are the challenges we have, but it's up to you to change it.
Yeah.
We're changing it together, but this is what you can achieve. I think that's also a part that's missing.
Yeah, I understand. I completely understand. You do need to see to believe, you need to see diversity to believe. You need to see the impact of the work that we do. So in terms of the JBCC, do you have programs that are geared towards students and mentorship, going to various universities to advocate for the built environment?
It's something that's in the pipeline, but I don't want it to be a tick box exercise, just something that, we out there. We used to do a lot of free, I want to call it like a webinar or a seminar, but I still feel that's not impactful enough. Letting people know what the JBCC does. We do those, but I think that within the next year or two, you'll see a lot more. But I think also collaboration.
Exactly.
We can't do it on our own. People need to know which kind of people use the JBCC. So partnering with SAICE, partnering with the ASAQS. Those are the kind of initiatives we're working on currently. But we haven't launched that yet.
Yeah. I understand that very much. So in terms of professional conduct and inclusion, I think there's been a lot of spotlight on ethics and, having an ethical environment in which to work. We're seeing a lot of construction mafia. We're seeing some professionals who have been enticed to do naughty things by clients. And there's a general lack of ethics because a lot of people are also not attached to regulatory bodies and professional bodies and the like, so you can't really have any much of accountability. What is your thinking around this area in terms of how we can raise the standard, if I can put it that way, of our industry?
Look at our obligation as professionals. We had this discussion at our conference quite in depth. It took a bit of a turn because, like you're saying, there's so much to unpack with ethics. If I have to look at just the JBCC in isolation, you take how the contract is drafted. It's drafted very fairly. It does distribute risk, but when a client employs an agent to act on behalf of him and instructs that agent to amend clauses to now make the risk disproportionate, what is that agent advising his client? What is his responsibility and obligation to act ethically and say, look, you're now deviating from a standard form of contract. The contract was drafted to distribute the risk fairly. Are you aware of what you're doing? I will advise against, because that's what you're employed for. You're not just there to be a yes man as a principal agent or employer's agent. You're not there to be a yes man. You're actually there to act professionally and ethically. And I think for me, that's the biggest disappointment that I'm seeing, where your agent is not advising you properly. So it starts from the very top of the food chain, if I can call it that. And then it goes all the way down to unfortunately even the subcontractors and it's a behavioral thing, and I think holding people accountable and saying this is your obligation as the employer's agent. They don't report to a statutory body necessarily.
Exactly. There's been a break in our accountability as an industry, and perhaps it's something that us as voluntary associations with the regulators, we have to relook, at that. But we are seeing the impacts of it on the industry as a whole. I totally agree.
If we create or define who can be an employer's agent or principal agent, what is the criteria, who qualifies, and who are you regulated? How is that role regulated? I think then that is holding that person accountable. Because at the moment, it's a little bit lenient, if I can say that. But it's just one aspect of that, of the ethical conundrum that we're facing.
You've given me a lot to think about, Tami. Thank you very much for that. I think in our other forums, it is something that we can bring to the fore. I know Exeter is still trying to finalize the identification of engineering work, for instance. So it's some of those aspects that we can start bringing into those kind of regulations within the industry and through the Council of the Built Environment. We had certain questions for our discussion, but our discussion went completely the other way. And I think it was very apt that we have, that we go and delve into these aspects of our conversation today. Unfortunately, I have to bring it to a close. But it was very interesting, and I've learned so much. And there are also some snippets that we can do from a SAICE perspective, taking forward to ensure that we have a better industry, and to have also better collaboration with the JBCC in 2026, and ensuring that your contract is also, it's brought into the fore for our members, especially those within the building environment. Is it mainly for building environment, or it can also be utilized elsewhere?
Building.
Mainly for building.
For building.
Okay. All right. No.
We are looking at more collaborative contracts, but it's building.
Okay. Please start with us when you go the collaborative contracts.
You see that look. I gave you that. of course. But thank you for having me and giving us a voice. I think it's important we have a voice.
Thank you so much, Tami. I had no choice but to have you here. You're absolutely stunning, by the way. Thank you very much for joining us today on our first podcast for the year. As SAICE, we remain committed to advancing engineering leadership and constructive industry collaboration. And conversations like this are very critical towards achieving that and improving the way that we plan and implement and deliver and upkeep infrastructure for the next generation and the public. Thank you.